of the series on how intentionality drives development, we're going to do a deep dive into capabilities, and we're going to start that by looking at what are the areas of capabilities. So we'll start with knowledge. With knowledge, we do conceptual understanding. So when you talk about whether you know something and are you knowledgeable about something, the first is, are you even aware of the words, of the concepts that represent what you're supposed to know? So if you say, for example, colors, if you don't know what violet is as a color, then even if you see the color violet, because you don't even know the word violet, you might not be able to say what you're saying, and you'd call it the closest that you know. Maybe the closest is blue, so you'd say that is blue because that's what you know. So the first is you're aware of the word violet, and then the second is, are you able to recognize violet when you see it? So you know you can associate violet with this color, and you know it's different from blue or red or whatever else. So now you know the word and you can recognize it. And then there's conceptual application. So now that you have some level of understanding and awareness of it, you now have you're now able to apply it. And in applying it, it's basically combining multiple concepts together in a practical application or a practical use. And that relates to principles and rules, that you understand how those concepts interrelate and how they work together, how they don't work together. And using that understanding, you're able to then use that conceptual understanding and application to make decisions. So when you think about knowledge, you're thinking about, do I understand it? So am I aware of the word, and can I recognize it? That means if I'm in a situation and I'm listening to stuff or seeing stuff, am I able to associate what I'm seeing with any of those concepts that I'm aware of and understand? And then number two is, am I able to make decisions with that concept because I understand how they work together, the principles of how they're related together. So when I'm reading that thing, I'm listening to someone telling me something, or we're having a conversation, I can connect the concepts together. I know how they work together, and I can then make a decision to say, I think this is what this means here, and then I can move on. On the skills level, again, under what is it, we're just going to look at three things. They're going to look first are you able to do those actions? So skill, remember, is about action. So are you able to do the action without support, independently? So that's just doing it. Then we go one level higher and we say, are you able to do it to a level of acceptable quality? So you're actually saying that I can do this thing, and I can do it to the level that the industry or the practice area accepts as good and acceptable. But we can even go one step further, because we're not just doing it because of the standards, we're doing it because we're trying to achieve a goal. So can you do it well enough to achieve the desired results, your desired results? And in some cases, that might require a level that's higher than an acceptable standard of quality. But the question is, are you able to adjust the way you're doing it to meet your goals in a particular situation, to achieve your desired results in a particular situation? So that's it. So we've got knowledge, conceptual understanding, and application. You can make decisions with that knowledge. And skills, you can execute the actions to a level where you can achieve your desired results. So that's what it is. Now let's look at how that is applied. So how do you apply this concept of knowledge and skills to an area of performance? So we'll start with domain of knowledge. So the domain knowledge is basically the area in which you're practicing, your field of practice, your profession, your career, whatever it is, finance, HR, learning, business, sales, whatever it is. And the first is, you apply the knowledge, conceptual understanding, and conceptual application first to domain results. What's currently being achieved in that domain? Do you know? Are you aware? Are you able to recognize those results? Do you understand relationships, and are you able to make decisions about those results? What more can be achieved? So what's going on now in that domain? What more can be achieved? And this is all domain specific. If it's sales in a particular field, what's the top? What's the best organization achieving? What more can be achieved? If it's design, if it's a field of design, what's the latest that people are able to get done in that area, and what more can be done? And then there's a body of knowledge in that area, which are called subject matter expertise. What's the current body of knowledge that exists in that domain of practice, and do you know it? Do you have conceptual understanding? Are you aware? Can you recognize it, and can you make decisions with it? What new knowledge is emerging in that domain, and what types of decisions need to be made within that domain? So what kind of, are they mathematical, are they logical? What kind of decisions are you making in that domain around the subject body of knowledge? And finally, do you know the kind of actions that you need that are performed in that domain, the kind of things that you do in that domain from an action perspective, kind of conversations you have, the kind of people you're talking to, also the kind of machines you operate, whatever. And how do those actions relate to the results? So this, if you are trying to get this result in this situation, then these are the kind of things you need to process to make that happen. So are you aware of how those things work? So that's from a knowledge perspective. Then you look at self-knowledge. So that's domain. Now we look at self-knowledge. So self-knowledge is basically saying applying the conceptual understanding and conceptual application framework to self. So how much do you value the results in that domain? So do you know how much you value the results in that domain? What are you? Do you know what you're currently achieving? Do you know how much more you can achieve? Do you know how hard you're trying? And do you know how motivated you are? And that's all on the knowledge side. Are you aware of how you might even be able to refer to this? Can you recognize it in yourself, whether you're trying hard, whether what you're achieving, what you're not achieving? Are you able to make decisions about it, as in, am I achieving enough, am I not achieving enough, etc.? And then also we look at your level of effort. How much do you know whether you can succeed by just trying harder? Do you think you need some development? And this is at the knowledge level. So do you understand what succeed is? Do you know what effort is? Do you know whether you can achieve more? So you can achieve just by doing more, or do you need some development? And do you know what development is? And do you need it? Self-management actions, you know what kind of actions you can take to solve for your value or to solve for effort. And you know how those actions relate to results. So this is all about self. You're talking about cognitive, emotional, social intelligence, that kind of stuff. But do you know? So we go down to the skills element of that. So how is the skills piece applied? Again, on the domain knowledge side is very straightforward. Can you execute the domain actions, right? So basically, ultimately, what you want to be able to do is once you know what those actions are, then each of those actions you want to be able to execute them with confidence, with proficiency. Can you do that? And then you go to the self-knowledge, same thing. Can you execute the self-management actions? Again, you want to be able to do them with proficiency, with confidence, now that you know what those actions are. Then finally, we look at how do you develop these? So how do you develop the knowledge and how do you develop the skills? So with the knowledge, it's very straightforward. The only way you're going to learn, acquire domain knowledge and subject matter expertise within a domain or knowledge about yourself is to speak to experts, to speak to domain experts, or to learn from domain experts, people who understand those concepts and those principles and those rules and how they relate and how they work. They are the ones that you're going to learn from. And you can learn from them directly, as in actually interacting with them, or indirectly interacting with things that they've produced. It could be books, videos, e-learning, whatever it is. But you're only going to learn this from people who understand it. You would also learn this from engaging in reflective practice, which is a process of actually trying to understand exactly how you are applying your knowledge to the decisions you're making and ultimately to the actions you take, and then working backwards from that. There's a whole series I'm going to be doing on just that. And from a skills perspective, how are you going to develop that? Well, the only way to learn how to do those actions is to learn from master practitioners. You need to go to people who are masters of application, who are masters of those actions, and learn from them. You can also learn from people who are skill coaches. That means they really understand. They practice a lot. They're practitioners themselves, but they focused more on coaching others rather than actually practicing to the level of higher standards. So they add a lot of value in helping people become masters at it by coaching them. And the third is actually engaging in deliberate practice, which is the idea that you actually intentionally expect to get better by working on it. And that's what you spend your time doing. And there's a whole series I'm doing on deliberate practice as well in the context of this framework. And there you have it. So when you think about the capabilities, you need to always remember that first you need to ask yourself, is it knowledge and skills? And if it's knowledge and skills, then you need to ask yourself, is it at the domain level or at the self level? And then you need to think about how you're going to develop it, what you're doing to develop it.